I was very curious to see heading into this offseason for the NBA what the Chicago Bulls were going to do because they're a team with some nice pieces in place, and they're a team that a lot of people think really aren't that far away from becoming championship contenders. I happen to think they're a little bit farther away than a lot of others do, but that's the name of the game, I guess. When you look at it, though, everybody assumed that they were going to be all in on Carmelo Anthony and that he was going to be that A option and he was going to be their only option. And I'm a guy that always believes in having a contingency. And I was wondering what the Bulls' contingency was going to be if and when Carmelo Anthony decided to not come to the Chicago Bulls. Well, I got my answer yesterday as Pau Gasol announced on Twitter that he will be joining the Chicago Bulls this upcoming NBA season. And I have to say, that's a pretty good contingency plan. They realized that Carmelo wasn't going to happen, was a bit of a pipe dream for them, that they needed to move on. And they moved on very quickly, and I applaud them for doing so. And what they did in the process, I think, was get them a player that actually gets them closer to being a championship contender than a Carmelo Anthony does. Look, Carmelo Anthony is a tremendous perimeter scorer, and a Chicago Bulls team could desperately use that scoring punch that he would have brought to the perimeter. Unfortunately, Carmelo Anthony is also 30 years of age. He would have required a massive max contract for the next several seasons that would have handicapped the Bulls organization and their ability to add other pieces via trade and free agency, what have you. And you're also talking about a guy that is totally deficient on the defensive end of the ball. So the Bulls team defense as a whole would have suffered as a result because they would have to mask Carmelo's defensive deficiencies. And some of you will sit there and say, well, Thibodeau's great at that. Yeah, he's great at that. But is he that great at that? And ultimately, would that offensive punch negated the defensive deficiencies? And I'm not sure that it would have, to the point that the Bulls could consider themselves championship contenders. But what you get with Paul Gasol, now I haven't seen the financial particulars, but if I had to guess at this point, I would assume it would be a 2 to 3 year contract, somewhere between 10 to 12 million per season. And when I see a team like the Washington Wizards, a legit contender in the East next season, in my opinion, no question about it, sit there and give $60 million to a lesser player in Marcin Gortat, I feel really good about the Bulls potentially giving 10 to 12 million a season for the next 2 to 3 years to a Paul Gasol. Now, I understand he's 34 years of age and he didn't have the greatest season last year with the Lakers, but again, he was playing in D'Antoni's system that wasn't a great fit for him. What we know with Gasol is this is a guy that brings some necessary low post scoring punch and prowess to the Bulls that they are desperately lacking and have for several years. If you have convinced yourself that Carlos Boozer brings any of those things or anything good to the Bulls, then go into the bathroom, look in the mirror, and smack the shit out of yourself and see what an idiot looks like. Paul Gasol brings those things. He also not only can give you some low post scoring, he has the ability as a power forward to be able to stretch out opposing defenses with his abilities to hit the mid-range jump shot. I also love his fit on the opposite side of Joakim Noah. I think the Bulls potentially have the best combination of power forward and center in their starting lineup in all of the Eastern Conference. Their skill sets seem to mesh very well to me. And now bringing in a Gasol and assuming you didn't go way out of your way to pay him way too damn much money, still leaves you some financial flexibility to maybe bring in a backup point guard like a Kirk Hinrich or somebody else. So that way you don't have to be done adding pieces, where if you would have added Carmelo, you might have had to have been done adding those pieces. Hopefully they amnesty Carlos Boozer, and that clears up a bunch of salary cap space. But you look at it, the Bulls with bringing in Gasol now, you're talking about a team that could potentially go as much as 9 deep and even more, which might give them a huge advantage over any team in the Eastern Conference. They're starting 5 of Dunleavy, Gasol, Noah, hopefully a healthy Derrick Rose, a young and improving Jimmy Butler. You go to their bench, their first-round pick, Doug McDermott. You look at Taj Gibson. They're bringing in Mirotic from overseas, Tony Snell, last year's first-round pick. If they bring in a backup point guard or a backup wing player, you're talking about a team that could go 10 deep, where a lot of other teams in the East might only be able to go 7 or 8 deep. And you saw with the San Antonio Spurs against the Heat in the finals how important that ability to go 9 or 10 deep against a team that could only go maybe 6 or 7 deep truly is. I love the fit for Gasol for this team. He brings leadership, he brings championship experience, and he brings a legit low post scoring presence that the Bulls have lacked for a number of years. So I love this move for the Chicago Bulls, but I want to know what you think. Do you think the Bulls did the right thing bringing in Pau Gasol? Do you think Pau Gasol did the right thing going to the Chicago Bulls? And how do you think this shakes up the landscape of the Eastern Conference? And how close do you think this gets the Bulls to being championship contenders next season?